You wake up, and before your feet touch the floor, someone already knows more about your day than you do. Not a stranger standing outside your window. Not someone following you through the streets. Something quieter, invisible. A system that has been watching the rhythm of your mornings for years. It knows how long you slept. It notices how quickly you reach for your phone. It predicts which headlines will keep your attention, which notifications will make your heart beat a little faster, and even what kind of mood you're likely to be in before you've had your first sip of coffee. The unsettling part isn't that it's watching, it's that you've slowly stopped noticing. Freedom has always been one of humanity's most cherished ideas. Entire civilizations have risen in pursuit of it. Wars have been fought in its name. Revolutions have rewritten history because ordinary people refuse to surrender it. Yet something strange has happened over the last few decades. For the first time, millions of people are voluntarily handing over pieces of their freedom. Not because someone forced them, but because it feels convenient. Every tap, every search, every purchase, every photo, every late-night question typed into a glowing screen becomes another tiny thread woven into a portrait of who you are. Not just who you were yesterday, but who you're likely to become tomorrow. And here's where the story takes a darker turn. What if the greatest system of control in history doesn't need chains? What if it only needs your cooperation? Yuval Noah Harari has spent years asking questions that many people would rather avoid. Not because they're comforting, but because they're unsettling enough to make us question the foundations of modern life. He argues that throughout history, power has always depended on information. Kings ruled because they controlled knowledge. Religious institutions shaped societies because they controlled stories. Governments built nations because they controlled records. But today, information itself has changed. For thousands of years, collecting information was difficult. A ruler could barely keep track of taxes, land ownership, or military supplies. Communication traveled at the speed of horses, ships, and handwritten letters. Even the most powerful emperor was surrounded by uncertainty. Now information travels faster than thought. The moment you pause while scrolling, algorithms notice. When you hesitate before clicking on one video instead of another, the system remembers. When you buy something you didn't know you wanted 30 minutes earlier, someone learns a little more about how your mind works. The remarkable thing is that none of this feels like control. It feels like choice. That's precisely why it's so powerful. Humans have always believed we're rational creatures. We like to think we make careful decisions after weighing evidence. But psychology tells a different story. Much of what we call choice happens beneath conscious awareness. Our brains rely on shortcuts, habits, emotional associations, and unconscious patterns built over years of experience. Long before neuroscience could scan a living brain, ancient philosophers suspected something similar. The Stoics warned that a person who cannot govern their own mind will always be governed by something else. Buddhist teachers spoke of craving as an invisible force pulling people through life without awareness. Centuries later, Carl Jung suggested that much of our behavior is driven by forces hidden beneath consciousness. Different cultures, different centuries. The same warning, the greatest prison is often the one you cannot see. Think about the last time you opened your phone to answer one message. Did you answer it immediately? Or did 20 minutes disappear somewhere between social media, videos, advertisements, and endless recommendations? Nobody forced you. Nobody threatened you. Yet somehow your intention quietly dissolved into someone else's design. Have you ever wondered why? Modern neuroscience offers part of the answer. Your brain evolved in environments where novelty often meant survival. A sudden movement in the bushes could signal danger. An unfamiliar face could mean opportunity or risk. Paying attention to the unexpected became deeply wired into our nervous system. Technology discovered something remarkable. If novelty captures attention, then endless novelty captures endless attention. Every refresh promises something new. Every notification whispers that something important might be waiting. Every recommendation is calculated to keep curiosity alive just a little longer. Not because someone hates you, because your attention has become one of the most valuable resources on earth. History has witnessed many forms of wealth. Gold, oil, land, industrial machines. But in the 21st century, attention may be more valuable than all of them. Companies compete for it. Political campaigns fight over it. Media organizations survive because of it. Artificial intelligence improves by learning from it. The economy increasingly revolves around something ancient hidden inside your skull. Your awareness. Once you begin seeing this, ordinary moments start looking different. The cafe where everyone sits together while staring at separate screens. The family dinner interrupted by vibrations no one can ignore. The walk through the park where birds sing overhead, but almost everyone is looking down. None of these people are doing anything unusual. That's exactly what makes it extraordinary. Control rarely announces itself, it becomes normal. History offers countless examples of this quiet transformation. Ancient Rome didn't collapse in a single dramatic moment. Many historians describe it as a slow erosion of institutions, habits, and civic responsibility. Changes accumulated until people could no longer remember what had been lost. Freedom often disappears the same way. Not with explosions, with small permissions. One click, one agreement. One harmless convenience after another. You tell yourself you'll read the privacy policy later. You won't. You assume someone else has already checked whether your data is protected. Most people make the same assumption. Gradually, responsibility dissolves into trust. And trust dissolves into dependence. Harari often points toward a future where data becomes more powerful than traditional political authority. If enough information is collected, not only about what you buy, but about how your body responds, how your emotions fluctuate, how your relationships evolve, then prediction becomes astonishingly accurate. And prediction changes power. If someone understands your fears better than you do, what happens to your freedom? If an algorithm recognizes the exact moment you're lonely, anxious, exhausted, or hopeful, how difficult would it be to influence your next decision? These aren't science fiction questions anymore. Pieces of this future already exist. Recommendation systems shape what billions of people watch. Navigation apps quietly decide which roads become crowded. Streaming platforms influence conversations before they begin. Search engines determine which answers appear first. None of these technologies are inherently evil. Many improve our lives in remarkable ways. They save time, connect families across continents, help doctors diagnose disease, allow knowledge to spread faster than any generation before us could have imagined. Technology itself isn't the enemy. Unquestioned dependence is. There's a subtle but profound difference between using a tool and becoming one. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once suggested that whoever fights monsters must be careful not to become one. Today, perhaps the warning deserves a modern translation. Whoever builds intelligent systems must be careful not to surrender their own intelligence in the process. Because intelligence isn't merely processing information. It's knowing when to pause. It's questioning what feels obvious. It's noticing when your attention has quietly drifted away from your own intentions. Have you ever caught yourself reaching for your phone without remembering why? Not because it rang. Not because someone texted. Just because your hand moved almost automatically. That tiny moment says more about modern life than most people realize. Habits begin as choices. Eventually, choices become reflexes. And reflexes can become identities. The most sophisticated systems of influence don't need to erase your freedom outright. They simply shape the environment around your decisions until one path feels effortless while every other path slowly fades from view. That's the paradox of our time. We have more information than any generation in history. Yet many people have never felt more uncertain about what is true, what deserves their attention, or even whether the decisions they call their own truly began with them. And that uncertainty may be the most important place to begin. Not with fear, but with a question. Because every era has demanded that human beings learn a new form of awareness. The next chapter of this story isn't really about technology. It's about the human mind that technology is learning to understand, perhaps faster than we are learning to understand ourselves. For most of human history, knowing yourself was considered one of the hardest tasks a person could undertake. The ancient Greeks carved the words, "Know thyself," into the temple of Apollo at Delphi. It wasn't decoration, it was a warning. Before trying to understand the world, understand the one thing that interprets it. Your own mind. Thousands of years later, that advice feels strangely urgent again, not because human nature has changed. Because something else has become astonishingly good at studying it. Think about how children once learned who they were. Identity emerged slowly. It was shaped by family stories, friendships, mistakes, quiet moments alone, and years of trial and error. There was space for uncertainty. You could disappear into your thoughts for an afternoon without interruption. You could change your opinions without thousands of digital footprints reminding you who you used to be. Today, identity often forms under constant observation. Every opinion can be posted, every photograph archived, every preference recorded, every hesitation measured. It's as though millions of invisible mirrors surround us, each reflecting a slightly different version of ourselves. At first, this feels empowering. We can express ourselves instantly, find communities that share our passions, build careers from creativity that would have been impossible a generation ago. But mirrors have a peculiar effect. Spend enough time looking into one, and eventually you begin adjusting yourself to satisfy the reflection. Psychologists call part of this the looking glass self. We don't simply develop an identity from within, we also absorb the way we believe others see us. Their approval becomes part of our self-image. Their criticism echoes long after the conversation ends. Now multiply that by millions, every like, every comment, every view count, every recommendation. Without realizing it, our nervous system starts treating digital feedback as social survival. That matters, because your brain still carries ancient wiring. 200,000 years ago, exclusion from the tribe wasn't merely embarrassing. It could be fatal. Belonging meant food, protection, and companionship. Isolation meant danger. Your biology doesn't fully distinguish between being ignored around a campfire and being ignored online. It simply reacts. That reaction keeps many people trapped in a cycle they barely recognize. They don't ask, what do I genuinely believe? They ask, how will this be received? The difference seems small. In reality, it changes everything. Once external validation becomes your compass, your inner voice gradually grows quieter. Carl Jung believed that much of adulthood is a journey toward integrating the parts of ourselves we've hidden away. He warned that whatever remains unconscious doesn't disappear. Instead, it quietly shapes our lives from the shadows. Modern technology didn't invent the shadow. It simply gave it new places to hide. Sometimes it's the version of yourself carefully edited for social media. Sometimes it's the anger you express anonymously because you never learned to face it directly. Sometimes it's the endless comparison that convinces you everyone else has figured life out while you're somehow falling behind. Have you ever noticed how exhausting comparison can become? You can spend hours consuming other people's victories and finish the day feeling as though you've accomplished nothing, even if your own life was moving forward all along. The strange irony is that comparison has never been easier, yet genuine connection has never felt more fragile. We're surrounded by communication but starving for conversation, connected to everyone, known by almost no one. This loneliness isn't simply emotional, it has consequences for the brain. Researchers studying social behavior have repeatedly found that meaningful human connection affects stress, memory, emotional regulation, and even physical health. Isolation changes the way people perceive the world. When we feel alone, the mind becomes more alert to threats. Neutral situations seem hostile. Small disagreements feel personal. Fear spreads more easily because the brain is searching for danger. Now place that brain inside an environment where outrage travels faster than calm. Conflict attracts attention. Attention generates engagement. Engagement creates profit. Suddenly, one of humanity's oldest survival mechanisms becomes part of a business model. That's worth sitting with for a moment. The most emotionally provocative content isn't always the most truthful. It's simply the most difficult to ignore. History reminds us that fear has always been a powerful political force. Empires rallied citizens by identifying enemies. Revolutions gained momentum through shared outrage. Leaders understood that frightened populations often accept restrictions they would normally reject. But today's landscape introduces something unprecedented. Fear no longer has to come from governments alone. It can spread through millions of ordinary people, amplified by algorithms that neither love nor hate us. They simply optimize for attention. The algorithm doesn't wake up intending to manipulate you. It has no ideology, no morality, no ambition. Its objective is astonishingly simple. Keep you engaged. Everything else is a consequence. That distinction matters because people often search for villains when reality is far more complicated. Systems don't always require malicious individuals. Sometimes they only require incentives. If fear holds attention longer than peace, fear spreads. If division generates more clicks than understanding, division multiplies. If certainty travels faster than nuance, certainty begins replacing wisdom. You can feel this happening almost everywhere. Conversations become performances. Disagreements become identities. Questions become weaknesses. Certainty becomes a currency. And yet, some of the wisest people in history built their lives on questions rather than answers. Socrates became famous not because he claimed to possess ultimate truth, but because he recognized how little he truly knew. His curiosity threatened powerful institutions precisely because genuine questioning cannot be easily controlled. Control prefers certainty. Curiosity creates freedom. The moment you begin asking why you believe something, you're reclaiming territory inside your own mind. Not because you'll always arrive at the correct conclusion, because the act of questioning interrupts automatic thinking. And automatic thinking is where influence often works best. There's another paradox hidden here. Artificial intelligence is becoming increasingly capable of recognizing patterns in human behavior. It can predict what music you'll enjoy, which products you'll buy, what route you'll drive home, and what stories will hold your attention. These achievements are extraordinary, but they raise an uncomfortable possibility. What happens if a machine predicts your decisions before you've consciously made them? Some scientists argue that many human decisions begin unconsciously before we become aware of choosing. Consciousness may be less like a commander issuing orders, and more like a narrator explaining what has already begun. If that's even partly true, then whoever understands those unconscious patterns gains remarkable influence, not absolute control. But influence doesn't need to be absolute. A tiny shift repeated billions of times changes history. One recommendation, one advertisement, one headline, one carefully timed notification, each seems insignificant. Together they shape cultures. That's why Harari often emphasizes data as the defining resource of our century. During the Industrial Revolution, those who controlled factories gained immense power. During the Information Age, those who organized knowledge transformed economies. Today, those who understand human behavior itself may hold the greatest advantage. Not because they can force obedience, because they can anticipate desire. The remarkable thing about desire is that it rarely announces where it came from. You suddenly want a new phone, a different career, another relationship, another opinion, another distraction. But pause for a moment. Where did that desire begin? Did it emerge from your deepest values? Or was it quietly planted through thousands of subtle influences accumulated over months or years? This isn't an argument for rejecting technology. It's an invitation to become more conscious while using it. There's a profound difference. The goal isn't escaping the modern world. Very few people can. The goal is learning to recognize when your mind is being pulled away from itself. When was the last time you sat in complete silence without reaching for stimulation? No music, no podcasts, no notifications. Just your own thoughts. For many people, that question feels surprisingly uncomfortable. Silence has become unfamiliar, and yet silence has always been where human beings encountered themselves. Mystics sought it in deserts. Monks found it in monasteries. Philosophers discovered it during long walks. Scientists often describe breakthroughs arriving during quiet reflection rather than constant activity. Perhaps that isn't an accident. A mind flooded with noise struggles to hear its own voice. And maybe that's the deepest challenge of our age. Not that someone else is thinking for us, but that we've become so surrounded by external signals that we've forgotten how to recognize the quiet signal coming from within. Because if freedom means anything at all, it must begin there, inside the invisible space between a stimulus and your response. That tiny space may be the only place no algorithm can fully occupy, at least not unless we abandon it ourselves. There is a quiet assumption woven into modern life that more knowledge automatically leads to more freedom. It sounds obvious. If you know more, you make better decisions. If information is everywhere, manipulation should become harder. If every answer is only a few seconds away, surely humanity is becoming wiser. And yet, something doesn't quite fit. Never before have people had instant access to so much information. And never before has it been so difficult to separate understanding from endless consumption. We scroll through thousands of opinions, breaking news alerts, podcasts, documentaries, posts, and videos. Yet many of us end the day feeling mentally exhausted instead of enlightened. Perhaps the problem was never a lack of information. Perhaps it was a lack of attention. Attention is where your life actually happens. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Whatever holds your attention eventually shapes your memory, your beliefs, your habits, and over time, your identity. You become what you repeatedly notice. That realization changes the conversation completely. The greatest competition of the 21st century may not be between nations or corporations. It may be the competition for the direction of human attention. Every platform wants it. Every advertisement purchases it. Every political movement seeks it. Every creator depends on it. Your attention is no longer just yours. It is an economic resource, a political resource, a technological resource, a psychological resource, which makes one simple question more important than almost any other. Who or what is deciding where your attention goes? Most days, the answer isn't you, and that isn't meant to provoke fear. It's meant to invite awareness, because awareness has always been the beginning of freedom. Marcus Aurelius, writing nearly 2,000 years ago while governing one of history's largest empires, returned again and again to a simple idea. You cannot control what happens around you, but you can learn to govern your own mind. Notice how relevant that feels today. The Roman emperor never had to contend with smartphones or artificial intelligence. Yet he understood that external events constantly compete for our inner world. Every insult, temptation, distraction, and fear asks for permission to occupy the mind. The difference today is scale. What once happened occasionally now happens thousands of times a day. Every vibration interrupts a thought. Every recommendation competes with your intention. Every carefully engineered feed asks you to remain just a little longer. Hours disappear not because we're lazy, but because modern technology has become exceptionally skilled at interacting with ancient human instincts. The remarkable thing is that the solution isn't to reject progress. History rarely moves backward. The printing press transforms society. Electricity transforms society. The internet transforms society. Artificial intelligence will almost certainly transform it again. The question has never been whether change arrives. The question is whether human wisdom grows alongside human power. History offers a cautionary lesson. Every civilization that gained extraordinary power eventually faced the same moral challenge. Could it govern that power responsibly? Sometimes the answer was yes. Often it wasn't. Power without self-awareness tends to become domination. Power guided by wisdom becomes stewardship. Perhaps the same is true for technology itself. Artificial intelligence can help doctors identify diseases earlier than ever before. It can accelerate scientific discovery, translate languages instantly, and assist people in ways that would have sounded miraculous only a generation ago. Those achievements deserve genuine admiration, but every powerful tool reflects the values of the hands using it. A hammer can build a home or destroy one. Technology amplifies intention. Which means the future ultimately depends less on machines than on the people designing, regulating, and living alongside them. That brings us back to a surprisingly personal question. How do you remain fully human in a world becoming increasingly automated? The answer probably isn't found in doing more. It may begin with noticing more. Notice the moment you reach for your phone without thinking. Notice how certain headlines immediately trigger emotion before reason has a chance to speak. Notice the difference between curiosity and compulsion. One expands your world, the other narrows it. The philosopher Viktor Frankl, reflecting on humanity's darkest chapters, argued that between stimulus and response there exists a space. Within that space lies our freedom to choose. That sentence has echoed through generations because it points towards something technology cannot easily replicate: conscious awareness. Algorithms recognize patterns. Consciousness questions them. Algorithms predict behavior. Consciousness can interrupt behavior. Algorithms optimize habits. Consciousness can transform habits. That distinction may become one of the defining characteristics of the coming century. Not intelligence versus artificial intelligence, but awareness versus automaticity. Have you ever driven somewhere and barely remembered the journey? Your hands turned the wheel. Your feet pressed the pedals. Your mind was somewhere else entirely. Psychologists call this automatic processing. It's incredibly useful. Without it, everyday life would be overwhelming. But automatic thinking becomes dangerous when it quietly expands into every area of life. You begin consuming without questioning, reacting without reflecting, believing without investigating, choosing without choosing. And because everything feels normal, nothing appears wrong. This may be why so many philosophical traditions emphasize waking up. Not from sleep, but from unconscious living. Buddhist teachings describe mindfulness as seeing reality, without constantly being pulled by craving or aversion. Stoicism teaches awareness of what lies within your control. Existentialist thinkers remind us that freedom carries responsibility, because every choice participates in creating the person we become. Different languages, different eras, the same invitation. Become present enough to recognize your own mind. Ironically, that may become humanity's greatest competitive advantage. Not processing information faster than machines. No machine needs to be beaten at that game. Instead, cultivating qualities that cannot easily be reduced to data alone. Compassion, wisdom, humility, moral courage. The capacity to sit with uncertainty instead of demanding immediate certainty. The willingness to admit, I don't know. These qualities don't generate viral headlines. They don't maximize engagement. Yet they have sustained civilizations for thousands of years. Around this point, it's worth asking something that only you can answer. What does freedom actually mean to you? Is it having unlimited choices? Or is it possessing the clarity to recognize which choices genuinely matter? Take a moment and really think about it. I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments. Because this conversation is bigger than any one person. Do you believe we're becoming more free as technology advances? Or are we slowly trading freedom for convenience without fully realizing it? There isn't a simple right or wrong answer, but your experience might help someone else see this question from an entirely new angle. The conversation itself matters. Because one of the first signs of a healthy society is its ability to ask difficult questions without immediately turning neighbors into enemies. Perhaps that's another kind of freedom we've forgotten. The freedom to disagree while remaining curious. The freedom to change our minds. The freedom to admit